Hello and welcome back to Second Take Movies, the podcast where we give movies a second look, a second chance, a second take, if you will. I'm your host, Preston Jenkinson, and my guest today is my very good friend, Jason Autry. Jason, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. Happy to be here.
Today we're talking about the 2004 movie Alien vs. Predator, and I have a lot of notes.
I bet you do.
So the first thing I'm going to do is bring up a synopsis. During an archaeological expedition on Boitavia Island in Antarctica, a team of archaeologists and other scientists find themselves caught up in a battle between two legends. Soon, the team realizes that only one species can win. And that was from IMDb.
Good synopsis.
Yeah. They just took, basically they took two of the best sci-fi movies from the 80s and made a subpar film.
Oh, subpar.
Yes.
He's already going there. I mean, so I'll say this to start with. I think one of your earlier guests said that, kind of revealed himself when you guys were reviewing the Star Wars prequels. And he said, he kind of admitted he was a fanboy.
Yeah, he's a lot younger than I am, so he grew up with those. So.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I mean, and just kind of admitted that, and which I thought was a good preface, before you start talking about a movie. So I'll kind of do the same thing. I'm probably more of a fanboy of Predator than I was of Alien, although I liked Alien too. Alien and Aliens. And I think I saw, those are the two best, in my opinion. Since this is an opinion podcast on movies, I'll just say that those are my two favorites out of that franchise.
During my research today, I delved into the internet on the history of this movie. This Alien versus Predator. The year before was Freddy versus Jason.
Right. A lot of versus movies.
And during my research, I found out that this was very much a studio decision, this movie, because James Cameron had an Alien 4 script ready to go, with Sigourney Weaver coming back and Ridley Scott directing.
Really?
And then the studio was like, oh, Freddy versus Jason made like $100 million. Right. So let's do Alien versus... Sorry, James.
Get that money.
Let's get W.S. Anderson in here. And so after I finished watching the movie, I had like a, okay.
Yeah.
But when I found that out, I just got mad.
For sure. I mean, that enters a wrinkle into it. But that makes sense. I mean, they got to go get that money, man. For sure. And I mean, obviously two 80s story franchises, I mean, why, it makes sense from a business standpoint to capitalize on it, but that is my preface though, that I wouldn't say that I am a blind fanboy, because I can see the flaws, and certainly watching it again, you see them, but I love Predator. I just love the concept of it, the idea of it, the theme of it. The first Predator movie, obviously is to me the coup de grace, but like that particular story, and there's just something about it, fighting an enemy that you can't see, that can cloak itself, and but yet somehow you got to figure out a way to kind of combat that and do that. To me it's obviously a physical element to it, a psychological element, but there's a spiritual element to it. You're fighting something that has the ability to take you out, but you can't see it, and it's got more weapons than you do, all that kind of stuff. So it kind of pulls those three or four things together, existentially, even for me. Just from a real quick personal thing, when I was a kid, this movie was made the first Predator was made in 1987. Mm-hmm. So, I was almost 10 years old. And I remember in my church, I went to a small church in a small town, South Carolina. And, everybody kind of knew everybody and hung out with everybody. And you were always around. And so in my experience, I was always around these teenage boys, the older kids. My brother was older. And so you're kind of always hanging around these guys. And these guys just talked about Predator, going to the movie theater and seeing Predator all the time. And this one particular kid that I really thought was the coolest dude on the block, he could tell a story like nobody else. I mean, he could just almost... I remember sitting one time and listening to him recount watching Karate Kid, and he like went frame by frame and was telling me and my brother, because we weren't allowed to watch movies like that when we were kids, and like what Karate Kid was, and we thought we had seen the movie, like hanging out with this guy, and he did the same thing with Predator. It was like a group of guys, and I thought, man, when I'm old enough to see the Predator, I'm gonna see that movie. And then I remember seeing it and not being at all disappointed. And I'll still watch it from time to time. You know, if it's on TV or I'll dial it up if I'm bored. But I think that which is not often. But so it's a little nostalgia for me. So I'll just say that. So when I'm watching Alien versus Predator, there's something about, you know, that particular, you know, theme and idea, and then that character and all that comes with it that I'm kind of drawn to. I found myself last night like rooting for him again, which is ridiculous. But at the end of the day, so I want to get that out there to anyone listening that, you know, my commentary is not slanted. I can be objective, but at the end of the day, I will be integral in the sense that I do like it. I like both the stories. I get it. I get why they would have done this. That backstory that you just gave is really, really interesting, and it makes sense. So,
And
there you go. There's my lead.
I like to preface all these episodes. I didn't do it last time, but if this someone out there, if this is your favorite movie, and you love it, great. It's not a personal attack.
Right. It's not a personal attack on your life and who you are.
So this movie opens up with like, it just immediately goes in. We're getting the team together.
Yeah.
There's a lady climbing up an ice wall.
Yes.
She's a survivalist.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Irish dude.
Mm-hmm.
There's an Italian guy.
Yes, it was a very bad accent.
And
but,
it's basically,
what it is.
This movie made me appreciate Prometheus more.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am I would call myself a Prometheus apologist.
Yeah, I think we've had that discussion before.
So this is basically the same setup as Prometheus. So they've kind of borrowed, like, gathering the scientists together to go, in this case, to the Antarctic.
Yeah.
And then we meet Mr. Wayland. It's Bishop from Aliens. Like
Bishop from Aliens. He was in this really, he was in this ridiculous martial arts film that Van Damme was in, that Van Damme did or whatever, called Hard Target or something. I remember he was the villain in that, and he was like this real dark dude. He plays that kind of well, this mysterious kind of dark
I was like,
figure.
is this your sad attempt to combine it to the
merge the worlds? Yeah, which lends some cred. What do you think about that idea? So one of the things that jumps out at me when I rewatched this was it's cliche, obviously, with Wayland. Okay, he's a billionaire eccentric who has this desire to do something transcendent in his life and make a mark on the world, and maybe he's virtuous, maybe he's not. Maybe he's trying to do something good. Maybe he's not. It's ambiguous. You don't know. But he's manipulating people and he's pulling strings and he's doing things. Don't you feel like there is a genre of action movies and or thrillers that have that same theme? I felt like, why does this always seem to be the eccentric billionaire? I'm trying to show my daughter a lot of the Jurassic Park movies. She really likes, the Jurassic Park movies. So she's watched the older ones, and then now we're kind of moving to the ones with Pratt. And so we're watching this the other night. We're watching the second one with Pratt on YouTube TV. And it's the same thing. It's an eccentric millionaire. He's got an agenda, but his agenda is not fully revealed. But, you're not sure if it's good, bad, virtuous, not. I mean, it's just so fascinating. He pulls all these people together and he gets all these experts, and then he kind of manipulates them and they figure it out. And don't you feel like I don't think I ever picked up on that before.
Pretty much the same thing happens in Prometheus too.
Yes, right, correct.
Everybody thinks Wayland's dead, and then they pull him out of cryo sleep, and he's like 90-something, 100-something years old. But that movie takes place 300 years in the future. So.
Years, right. Yeah, so you got a little
Obviously,
bit of a
this
different
movie is
viewpoint.
not canon anymore.
No.
Because in Aliens 2, in
Right.
Aliens, they were like, we've never had any recording of these creatures before, the
Yeah.
xenomorphs or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It is that as well. I mean, I didn't even think about that till you made the Prometheus cross reference a
And
second
it's
ago.
like
But yeah,
Ridley Scott just took this back
just
and
such
was
a
like, I'm going to start over, kind of.
right. But I feel like it's this commentary on even what we're kind of dealing with today. You know, it's just the constant commentary on people with too much money that have these eccentric ideals. Um, Bezos, Musk, all these guys, and the fact that they stay in the news because of because of their riches, but because of their eccentric pursuits. And it's so funny how like that seems to be kind of a going theme in the movies but they always present that person. And I think Lance Henriksen's character in this, Wayland, I think they're presented as ambiguous characters. Like you make the choice whether or not this guy is, doing this for the right reason or for the wrong reason or how he's doing that.
And so we make it to this fishing village in Antarctica. The movie opens up with like the Predator ship entering our atmosphere and drilling this laser down, because apparently they're coming to get rid of the aliens, I guess. And so our group of people just show up at this hole and look, and it's like, that's not a big deal. It's just a hole in the ground.
Well, they have a dialogue about it though. Remember, they're like, well, nothing could have done this. No boring or drilling, machinery on Earth could have done this. I don't know of anything that could have ever done this.
Yeah,
Of course,
their
they think
big
it's
thing in this
another team
movie
of
is to find it
explorers.
before anyone else. And like, what other $1 trillion company could make it
find it
out
before
there?
anyone else, as if that's ever been done. Who goes to Antarctica? And it's like there's some kind of underlying race to do this, and it doesn't make sense in the terms of the story, for sure. But that's one cool thing about Predator. I mean, introducing all these, and I think this has happened from the beginning of this franchise, introducing all this new technology, which is really interesting. I mean, the whole idea to start with of heat signatures and his weaponry and all this kind of stuff that's kind of cool to me. I don't know. I again could be fanboying it right now. But,
another note is I guess I missed it, but I was like, why is Waylon so obsessed with getting to Antarctica and find it? Does he know that there's aliens in the ground?
Good question. I mean, the thing is that there's a campy. Gosh, I didn't realize how campy this was till I saw it again. There's this kind of a campy exchange with the girl from Blade. What's her name? Sanae Lathan or whatever. There's an exchange. I can't remember her. I think that's her name. They're having a conversation about him doing something that lasts, that's some legacy of his. And then when they find it, he's like, thank you. He's got that reveille voice. He's like, thank you, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to do this. But there's never any like resolution as to why he's doing it, and he's so thankful. So what's the point? Right,
like,
exactly.
What are you trying to find? Like, at least in Prometheus, it was like, there's definitely like another planet out there, and we're trying to find the people that created us.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm probably thinking too much into it, but again, it's that ambiguous presentation of these particular people that maybe they just leave you with the idea that they're just doing it because they can.
And that's something that Michael Fassbender brings up in Prometheus. Anytime I get a chance to talk about Michael Fassbender, I'm going to talk about it.
Of course, that's your boy. Yeah.
His character in that movie brings up, like, he asks the scientist who's disappointed with what he's found, he's like, well, why did they create us? And he's like, well, why did you create me? Because he's an android in that movie. And he's like, because we could. Yeah. He's like, well,
because we could.
What if you get that answer?
What are you going to do with that particular answer?
Yeah.
And I don't think we like that answer.
No.
I think there's got to be some intrinsic reason why people do
Human
things.
Thing
Sometimes it's not.
Be,
they just do them because they want to. Yeah. Yeah. We want to be remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah. We love ourselves. Um, yeah, that's funny. That's an interesting thing for sure.
Yeah. We'll progress the story. So we find the temple where we go down the temple into this hole on a sled, kind of.
Yeah.
And so they make it in there, and then they make it. There's this. The geometry to me just doesn't work because it's this huge temple underground.
Right.
That's frozen
2,000 feet underground.
That's supposed to be part of Mayan culture in Antarctica. Pretty sure Antarctica was
well, not a part of Mayan culture, but like anthropologically speaking, all the cultures are indicated in the architecture.
That's
Remember?
right.
They were talking about
okay. They just
Mayan culture, Cambodian culture, Southeast Asian culture. So I think it was this idea of, which I thought was interesting. I'd never picked up on it before. Yeah. This idea of dispersion, like the idea. But they're not talking about dispersion. They're talking about aliens being the architects of these structures that are hard to imagine.
It's like on the Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. It's like, there's no way that these idiots in the ancient world could build this stuff.
Exactly.
How'd they build it?
There's no...
Aliens.
Hey,
how did they build the pyramids in Egypt?
How did the Mayans? How did they build the mezzanine? It's crazy. They had to have aliens. I mean, yeah, they did it on the backs of other people, which is awful, but it's just true. And they did it because they were smart and ingenious, and they were intuitive, and they were just like every generation has adapted. And I don't understand, wherever you fall on the spectrum of evolution, they adapt. And so why is it so hard to believe that people were able to do these things and make these things happen? But they couldn't.
All these pyramids around the world in different parts of the world, they're all built the same. It's almost like it's the basic way to build something.
Right. It's weird. It's almost like there was a template.
Jeez. Smart people are the dumbest
It's really
people.
An interesting little take. Well, I tell you, we overthink things sometimes, I think, maybe. And I think that was the thing. Honestly, it was the aliens predated all this, so they had all of the technology and the ideas about how to build the structure. So that's why you saw them.
These predators are like the weekend warriors of their planet. Like they're the rich guys that get to go off to the nature for the hunting preserve and. Yeah.
The safari.
Are these like the elite?
Drive very expensive Jeep trucks.
Oh.
Yeah. That's right. Maybe. I don't know, man. That's a funny take for sure. I mean,
but when we get down to the temple floor,
I don't know.
Very Indiana Jones style, someone steps on a tile and it sinks into the floor, and we're introduced to, honestly, a very well-built alien queen who's on ice. That's one thing I'll say about this movie. There was a lot of practical puppetry going on with that and a lot of the aliens. I appreciated that. Yeah.
Interesting.
That basically thaws her out and she starts spitting out eggs. But go ahead.
Yeah, out of a trunk of an elephant or something that looked like, which I didn't understand. I guess that was some kind of... I'd never really seen that presented in Alien, in the Alien franchise. But whatever. I mean, you see the eggs in the other movies, but you just don't see it presented that way. But whatever. The thing that got me about that was, if the acid was able to release her easily, later in the movie, why couldn't she have burned through it, centuries before? Was it because of the frozen state, or... Is that why they had her so far down in the ground?
She's frozen, and when she wakes up, there's electricity going on, and
there's some electrodes and
that's what it looked like in Aliens. But I mean,
and what have you?
It was on like an outpost that was man-made. Right. So I guess she was drawing from the electricity from
in outer space.
I don't know.
Right. I mean, you're still in the Earth's ecosystem. So it's like, How did that happen? Yeah, I don't know. That was an interesting thing. But I hear you. That's an interesting the headdress that she had on, and yeah, all that ancient looking
And
stuff was really
one
cool
thing
for
I
sure.
do
I
like
like
about
that
this
kind of stuff.
movie, we finally have an alien movie where a scientist doesn't put their face 2 inches away from an egg.
There is
Yeah,
that. We have the
like
non-invasive
not gonna
scientist that is smart enough at least not to do that. Yeah,
at least put it in
that's
a
funny.
containment
I'm
thing,
gonna
and
put my face down
but it doesn't matter because eventually at
there.
some point in the movie the
Right,
eggs just open up
exactly.
and the face huggers flying across the room like the Matrix.
They just they start flying.
I was like, I know
They
they
start
can
flying.
jump, but
They're
okay.
flying face huggers. That was pervasive throughout. Was the
So
flying
chaos
across the room?
ensues, and at some
Um,
point,
yeah,
the British dude brings out a gun. If you
yes.
thought this was like some kind of archaeological thing, why'd you bring guns? What were you expecting? I mean, I guess it's a good idea to bring guns, but I mean,
Good idea to bring a gun, I guess, in a foreign place. I don't know. The girl is,
and that
Sine
is, I
Lathan's
looked it up, and
character
that is
is
actually her
constantly talking
name.
about
You
how
you
they
did a
really
lot
don't
better
need
than I did on
guns.
that. I was like, I haven't.
Is that her name? Okay, no, that's okay. I wasn't exactly sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
she didn't
she's
want.
always got a
There was a
comment
big
about
thing. She didn't want
guns
guns
in the
down there.
movie. You notice that
Yeah,
she doesn't want guns.
it's got to be conflict.
And so there's got to be that slipped in a little bit, which yeah, that's constantly. Yeah, he pulls the
Yeah,
gun out. What do you think about before we, didn't at that point when the alien rises up, didn't
yeah.
the
They had.
predators have a
They were. It
schematic
keeps cutting back and forth to
that
them
they
on the
were
ship,
looking
and they're
at?
like, they've got a scan of everything, and then some kind of beacon goes off within the temple, and they get like a 3D scan of the temple, and they can see the heat signatures of
I
people.
thought that was kind of cool technology, and it also provides an answer for how they're able to keep tabs on it. That they're not just randomly picking somewhere in the universe that they stowed something way back, and they just decide to bore a hole. That they see the inner workings of it, obviously because they built it. Because people could have never built that.
My theory is they had these on other planets in the universe,
Yes, for sure. Could see that.
other backwater planets, as they call it.
Yes. Other temples, you mean? Where they
Yeah, other temples that they were worshipped by the people
of that
that lived on
particular
that planet.
place.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And all of a sudden, the temple turns into a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah. Yep. Got
As we're
some
running
some
out?
hidden rooms and
I was like,
little faux hallways and
is that programmed to always do that, or just
And
when someone?
just when someone runs through and do the predators control that,
Yeah,
or does it happen automatically?
it didn't. It looked like it happened just automatically.
Yeah.
I mean,
At the end, I thought it was interesting though when she and him are running out of the mezzanine. Though it took them less than 30 seconds to run out.
yeah,
But yet before there was all these hidden hallways and trapdoors. And
yeah. But no, we're just
now it's just 5 seconds. We're out.
we're
out
gonna
the
drop
door.
this bomb in
That's
here, and
right.
we're booking it out. We're gonna outrun this atomic bomb.
Right.
So
Right. Exactly.
the aliens finally get birthed. I guess
Mhm.
I guess they just grow quickly. I don't, or they were already in there.
They're already spawned.
I can't
I have
remember.
no idea. Yeah. I don't know, man.
But
They come
we
along
get
fast.
we get that trailer shot of the predator and the
Right.
alien just
Right.
staring at each other, which is basically the poster.
It's the poster. It's iconic. I have to say. I mean, I said that to you, but I mean, it is. I mean,
It's a good shot.
It's
I
a
mean,
great
that's
shot.
what sold the movie.
There's a couple of shots I feel in that particular 10-minute sequence, 8 to 10 minutes there, that are all kind of iconic. It's that one. It's the other one I sent you, where he's throwing.
Throws the alien. Across
He kind of picks him up and just kind of spins him around and slaps him into a bunch of columns and
Yeah.
then throws him down that hallway.
Yeah.
That particular slowed down scene is also pretty iconic too. I remember seeing that the first time years ago when I rented this thing. I think I watched this movie on DVD. If that tells you anything.
I think this was 2004.
Mm-hmm.
I was 14, 15.
It's crazy.
I think me and my friend went and saw this in the theater.
Did
I
you
remember
go to
watching
the
this in the
theater?
theater. Yes.
Okay, you have made a revelation now.
Yeah.
You went to see this in the theater,
I
Preston
did.
Jensen.
My mom
Interesting.
or somebody else paid for me to see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was
I
PG.
see.
It's another thing. It's PG-13.
It is PG-13. Mm-hmm.
Two franchises that have made their money and bank off of being
Rated
gory and androids being ripped apart and the surprise face hugger from the first Alien.
Right.
And
interesting, isn't it? Probably to make more money, right? I mean, it opens up.
What it was.
It
they
opens
didn't
up
want
the
to go
classification.
all in on it. So,
Right.
I mean,
yeah, it's interesting. That's an interesting take too, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
they get one fuck in this movie, and then at the end she goes to say motherfucker, but it's PG-13.
Wait, no, she did.
Yes, she goes, you were one ugly mother, and then it cuts her off right there.
Did it? I thought she actually said it.
Yeah.
There was a cheesy line at the end. There was a really cheesy line at the end where she's like, she's talking to the predator, and he can't understand her.
Yeah.
But she's like, you can't let him get to the surface or something like that.
Yeah.
And, we're gonna fucking kill them all or something like that. And it's like, oh gosh, I rewound it. It was so bad. It was so bad. It was good.
Yeah.
And yeah. So there was only a few of those. Yeah. Nothing gratuitous.
They team up so quick.
I mean.
But first, I'm not big on the design of these predators.
You're not.
They were too bulky.
They're very bulky,
and it looked like they couldn't move.
Very bulky and non-sleek. Yeah, for sure.
When they're fighting in the first fight, I just imagine it's like two guys in rubber suits on set, just because in that original Alien Predator movie, he's like real kind of more slimmed down.
Well, he's slim and he's super tall. If you'll remember, that actor was like 7 foot or something like that, 6'11".
So the guy that played the original Alien was like 7'5" or something like that.
Yeah, very tall guy. Yeah, very tall and slender. And that's what I loved about I'm glad you brought that up. That's what I loved about the first Predator was how just agile and sleek looking he was. There's a scene in there where at the end, or close to the end, when Schwarzenegger has fallen into the river and then he gets the mud on him, realizes that he can't see him because of the heat signature. And he watches him walk by, and you really get like the first real
because he's been invisible. Yeah,
and he's running and jumping. Yeah, he's running and jumping down those rocks, and you're like, man, that's an impressive specimen, And so you're like, that makes it even more daunting, I hear what you're saying in these guys are more bulky. Do you think it's the armor? Do you think it's because it's freezing?
And everyone else in this movie just has like a regular jacket on.
Right.
It's what, negative 30 degrees in the Arctic? I don't know.
I don't know. It's got to be close. They were bulkier, though. That is really interesting. And
I don't know if that was the stunt guys or the suits.
It's hard to tell. Even at the end, when they, when they're going onto the ship, the kind of the head honcho that comes out and gives her the ceremonial spear. He's super bulky too. Oh, very silly. We could have done without that.
I'm okay, but can I get a ride?
Can you guys get me out of here?
Just drop me off.
Because remember earlier, she said it was the point of no return. They were past the no safe return, the NSR. Which I had a pilot friend one time who used to use that terminology all the time. He would say the NSR all the time, in analogies.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. So I didn't remember that at all from that movie. And so when she said that last night, I kind of laughed to myself, thought about my friend. But yeah, so yeah, how's she getting out?
She makes friends with the Predator. He's like, "You're cool with me. Here's a tail and a head for a shield."
She makes friends. He makes her some gear.
I guess he's demonstrating that when he dips, the acid doesn't do anything to their skin. I guess that makes sense since it's inside of their body.
The acid doesn't penetrate it.
You create these things to, I guess, hunt on the weekend, fight, improve your skills or whatever. Why would you create something that could take you down very easily? because that's how I feel. Like the xenomorphs should just like take them down with no problem.
But
I feel like
they have that parachute though. Remember, like they show this in the movie, that the nuclear bomb.
Yeah, the nuclear bomb. And they show us this because the Italian dude is telling the story.
Correct. Yeah, the archaeologist. Yeah.
How did he get the entire from the walls?
Right. He's reading hieroglyph, man. He's translating.
Because all of a sudden we're in this flashback, and I'm like,
right.
the hell did he learn this?
Preston, don't dog my movie, man. This guy just knows it. Okay, he's smart.
Like Mr. Italy over
Indiana
here,
Jones
he
is
just
smart.
knows.
All right.
He picked up a book somewhere.
No, I think you're led to believe, like when they pan back to them, I think it looks like he's reading the hieroglyph.
Just give me a shot with him on like taking notes from the wall or something. I mean,
right, fit something in there that gives us an indication of where he's getting this
Paul
from.
W.S. Anderson, you gave up your Resident Evil franchise for a minute to come and direct this movie. At least put some effort into it.
Yeah, Resident Evil wasn't awful. You know, well, the first one was okay. They are. Well, the first one's okay. Maybe you should do a Resident Evil with somebody.
I've never seen those movies, so I would.
You've never seen them,
never
so
watched
yeah,
any
that's
of
not
them.
gonna happen. The first one was okay. I think the first one's the only one I saw. Yeah, that's an interesting. I don't know where he was coming up with it. I was thinking about that last night, thinking about how he had to be reading it and translating. But how does he translate ancient alien script? I don't know. Who knows?
But I remember why the temple started doing its cube thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
They removed the guns that were in this chest that the predators had stored there.
That's right.
And I'm like, that's just their basic weapon.
Yeah.
The shoulder cannon. Why would they leave that there?
And why would it be such a big deal if somebody took it?
Yeah. It's like y'all probably make 10 more, y'all probably got more advanced ones
for sure
already, because it's been 1,000 years
or so.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. But you have to love the weaponry. Come on, man. Like there's also, before the iconic scene, there's the scene where he throws the spear and it's cloaked at that point through the guy.
Which I don't remember their weapons can cloak too, unless they're attached to them. But I mean, that's neither here nor there.
You didn't see that in the first Predator. I don't think you saw in Predator 2 either.
No.
But yeah, I guess they can cloak their weapons, which would make sense.
Sure.
You know, if you got that technology, you can do it with anything. But I did not remember. I thought that was a pretty cool scene. Like that the guy, you know, kind of gets hung up there on the wall and then it appears kind of out of him. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's good fights and good shots in this movie.
There's some great fights and great shots. That's why I'm saying that 8 to 10 minutes. If you're a Predator and an Alien fan,
yeah, just show somebody
in any
that.
way, right? That is probably worth it to you,
because the other stuff is just basically enough we can fill this out to a feature length.
We got to have some storylines to get us to an hour and a half.
And there's also a marked alien for some reason. He gets caught in a net, and it kind of cuts through him, and the acid comes through, and he just pops up through the rest of the movie. I'm like, he's just a regular alien. I don't know why we needed to have this same alien pop up through the whole movie.
Couple of times. How does he die? Is he the one that he cuts his head off?
No, I think that's a different one.
Eventually, it's a different one.
Because he shows up when her and the Predator make it into that room where the rest of the crew is dead, and they're all got face huggers on, and the aliens are starting to pop out.
You're right.
And
that's
then
right.
A bunch of aliens just show up. And then he's like, you know, with his long fingernail, beep, beep, beep. And we outrun a nuclear bomb on the fastest sled I've ever seen in my life. This thing is inching down at the beginning of the movie, and then all of a sudden just
goes up at Mach 2. I know. And they somehow survive it flying. She does. She survives flying out of the hole. You know, I can believe him surviving. Her surviving at that speed and that crash, not a chance.
Somehow the queen, no, the other aliens do release the queen, and she makes it. I guess she makes it out before the bomb goes off. After the bomb goes off, they didn't really show, but
Yeah, but she
Her
made
and
it.
Predator fighting the
Her
Queen. All you
teaming
missing
up,
is
man.
a yellow mech suit and saying, I wish they would have done that. I would have said bravo to you if she got into some kind of piece of equipment and said, "Get away from him, you bitch." I would have been
And
like,
channeled her inner Sigori.
bravo.
That would have been, hey, good reprise.
Because
Yes,
that's the best
fantastic.
moment of that movie.
That would have been.
For some reason, I
yeah.
watch Aliens every year on my birthday. Like, it's just something that
Really?
I think it was on one day on my birthday, and I sat down to watch it, and I just kept doing it. So it's a movie
That's
I watch
so funny.
once a year.
Right. I love it. Yeah.
So, and that's always my favorite part. When
That's your favorite part.
That and Bill Paxton's "Game over, man."
Game over, man. I love
It's over.
Game over. I do. Listen, I've had to explain to my daughter where that comes from because I've used that quote in my house. Game over, man.
It's game over.
It's usually in a Gamecock game right after the first quarter, but that's usually when I do the game over. But she was like, "Daddy, where's that come from?" I'm like, "Well,
a movie you can't watch yet.
A movie you can't watch."
I was explaining because for some reason I had a Predator toy growing up.
Okay, really?
Yeah, they marketed this
Man,
stuff. That was back when they marketed like R-rated movies to kids, and they put out toys for them.
For sure, buddy. Yeah.
And my nephew, just at my mom's house, has like this big box of toys that are just all the toys that my parents wasted on me. That I could probably get like $1,000 out of this huge tub of stuff. That's just like original Marvel stuff and Star Wars toys and Transformers and all this stuff. But anyway, he pulls out that toy and is like asking me, "What is this?" And I start explaining Predator to him. And he's 5.
Right, of course.
And so he goes and asks, and I preface it by saying it's from a movie that you're way too young to watch. He understands that.
Okay.
He's like, I'm like, you're way too young to watch, but.
But I'll tell you anyway.
Goes and asks his mom.
That's what I do
about it, and she's like, I'm sure Uncle Preston will show it to you at some point.
Yes, you guys will have a guy's night. When awesome.
He's like 15 or 16 or something.
Right. Yeah, that'll be a fun one. That's funny though.
Just have to tell him, don't tell your mom I showed you this movie.
Right. We watched something else.
That's a long ass timer on that bomb.
Long timer, and they somehow, I don't think like you were saying, I don't think the math adds up. But that's okay in terms of their escape time.
I mean, it's not a Christopher Nolan movie where he's got it timed out perfectly.
It's not a Batman drop, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's like you can, like any movie of Christopher Nolan, you can, like if there's a time limit, you can set your watch to pretty much.
Yeah, which is really interesting. I don't know. Here's the thing. Can I say one more thing to the whole action sequences?
Go for it. Yeah.
Which I think fits with even your story with your nephew. I think and the, get away from her bitch thing. All Predator movies, I feel like all the Predator movies, again, the new one, we don't have to get into that tonight, obviously, but
I like that one too. No, not the new Alien Covenant, not the new Predator.
You like Alien Covenant, right? I'll be honest with you. I don't know what it was, whether it was like all the hearing about how they're going to reboot it and Shane Black's going to do it, and
I was getting excited.
I was too, man, and I was.
Boyd Holbrook as the lead.
Boyd Holbrook, and then they, I mean,
after that, the character he played in Logan.
Mm-hmm.
He's become one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, fantastic, and and then you got Key is in there from Key and Peele, and he's probably going to provide some comic relief, and he did. I don't know if it was that or the anticipation of it all, or just the fact that I love that story and that character and that this particular villain or monster, and the fact that it was Shane Black. But man, it just really left a lot of things short. Like just the story and the way they did it was really not well done at all, and it was just disappointing, man. It really was, and but you and I've talked about this before years ago, that usually when you hear that production has stopped and restarted and they've rewritten, it's probably not a good
They
sign.
just did that with the Kenobi series.
And they did it with Han Solo. I mean, usually that's not a good sign, man. Usually when the movie comes out, it's a stinker, and that's what was really disappointing about The Predator. You've had all these years. Shane Black supposedly had been working on this for years, and then that was the product. That's what kind of leaves it short for me.
Because the trailers look good.
Trailers look good,
and they it's R-rated. It's we're going back to
it.
What we know.
Mm-hmm. Going back to what we know, and we're kind of pulling in some of the older themes, but rebooting some of them a little bit. Yeah, it just didn't do it for me. But I say that to say that in all Predator movies, including that one, and certainly in all the Alien movies, and I saw Alien Covenant, and I liked it. Too. There are a few action sequences that almost make it worth watching the movie, and
Michael Fassbender acting against himself.
I mean, we're just going to talk about Fassbender the rest of the night. That's fine. I understand, Preston. This takes me back a couple of years to my kitchen. No, he's great, and yeah, exactly. It does. To your point, wrinkles like that. I mean, just little subtle stuff. Last night, I rewound a couple of parts. Like that, obviously the throwing them through the air and the face to face, and then the one where the alien's down in that pit where he's killed the Predator, one of the first ones, and he's standing on top of him, kind of growls over him, and it pans out way out, down that chute a little bit, and it's a very cool, iconic scene. But I'm not just talking about even those, but where the flying thing comes, he throws the kind of the dart, the ninja star that's kind of the boomerang that comes back to him. He kills the flying thing, and then the one alien is scaling the wall, and he doesn't even turn around, just kind of flicks his wrist up there and just kind of cuts his head off. I mean, come on, those are almost worth some of those dealing with some of those other things in these movies, and I feel like all of them had.
Yeah.
It gets you through some of the dialogue and some of the campiness and just some of the real cheesy acting.
So after because they eventually, of course, they end up defeating the alien queen, throwing her into the icy abyss, and the Predator had marked himself earlier in the movie, his helmet and his head. I don't know why he needed to do both, but do you, buddy? And at the end.
He's a warrior. He's a warrior, Preston.
Okay.
Don't. Hey, look, your archaeology buddy told you.
Sure. Ancient
warriors would mark themselves.
There was precedent for it.
I can feel the skepticism.
But he dips the nail of a xenomorph in its blood and just. She just accepts it?
Just mark my face for good with xenomorph blood.
Instead of being like, no, thank you.
No, I don't want permanent. No. I don't want a permanent scar on my face.
That happened. Did he die at some point? Or they were picking up, because they picked because the Predators come down in their ship. He does die.
Yeah, he dies. Yeah,
because he gets stabbed with.
Well, he dies because the alien impales him.
Right.
Yeah,
so he gets stabbed with the tail. So he must have marked her before he got stabbed, or while he was dying. Anyway, Predators. I guess the Council of Predators, or the leaders, the leader of the Predator world in his big robe comes down, and they pick up his body and take him. They picked up, because there was 3 Predators that landed, and they picked up the 3 dead, all 3 of them, I guess. And they hand her, right. We talked about this earlier, but they hand her a spear. Cool.
Right.
But.
Right.
Can I get a ride?
Can you guys drop me off?
Right.
Since you scale the universe, can you drop me off my house?
A ship that can travel the speed of light. I think it can take me back to. Yeah.
It can take me to New Jersey. Drop me off in a.
You don't even have to just lower it. I'll just.
Just send me down in one of those tubes. Just right into my basement.
And So they turn around and go off, leave her in Antarctica to die, I guess. And the closing shot, they've got it, one of the aliens on an altar, and they walk away, and then we get a chest burster with the predator jaws, and it just cuts.
We get a Paxton. Cuts away. Leaves us hanging, if you will.
Sets it up for a crappy sequel. Oh my god.
A crappy one that I didn't attempt.
I've never seen it all the way through. I've just seen clips of it.
No.
I didn't even know it existed until like a couple years ago.
I didn't either. And it might have been when The Predator came out is when I found out that it existed.
Probably.
And I was kind of going a little rabbit hole on it when it was when it came out. So yeah.
What's funny to me is that Disney owns all of this now.
They do. And they'll probably reboot it.
Well, there was a movie, another one that Sigourney Weaver was attached to, that was being directed by the guy that did District 9. He was working on an alien movie before Disney bought everything.
Okay. Did they buy that from him?
I mean, it was on the schedule at Fox, and Michael Biehn was coming back.
Michael Biehn.
And,
dude, Johnny Ringo, come on.
Yeah. That's a good movie.
And Terminator. Yeah. Well, Michael Biehn was in Terminator, too.
Yeah. He was everywhere in the 80s.
Dude, he was. The 80s and 90s for sure. Michael Biehn was in a lot of 80s and 90s action
He shows up
movies.
in Mandalorian season 2.
He does.
Like, oh, he got old.
Oh, boy. Michael Biehn. What you been doing, bud?
Yeah.
Been hard living, my man.
Hollywood.
Yeah, that's right. You've been Hollywooding it. Yeah, here's the thing, man. The concept had promise.
Yeah.
I feel.
Obviously.
You know, I think you and I used to talk about this a lot years ago. Like, one of the things for me about storytelling is if you're going to do something again, I listened to a recent interview me and Olivia did with Krasinski. He was talking about how he wasn't going to do A Quiet Place 2 and just refused. And then they kept calling him, and finally somebody else was going to do it, and they asked him to give some creative license to it and like write up some notes. And then he tells the story where like he started writing up the notes and was just like, crap, I got to do it. And so he told him he'd do it. Well, in that interview, and then in a couple of extras that we watched after we saw the movie, he talks about this same idea that I've shared with you before. What I loved about Nolan and the Dark Knight trilogy and all that is that if you're going to do it again, you got to introduce something new. There's got to be some kind of new theme that brings us back to an old understanding of that person, or the character, or the story, or whatever it may be. So I like that. That's just my personal preference. I like that in storytelling and in narrative. What's interesting about this was the reason why it had promise is because they are pulling in some of these themes, and they tried to tell a new story about it with some ancient pyramids and mezzanines and sacrificial rituals.
Set it in the future on one of those outposts in 2004 when the movie came out.
Like why in 2004 and yeah, they could have done so much more, but it had the reason why I say it had promise is because, and maybe that fits into my kind of my rubric of why I love retelling of stories is it had promise because it was an old characters, old themes, but looked like they tried to tell it in a new way. Not an awful idea at all. It really wasn't. It just the way it was kind of expressed, and then the way it kind of meted out, just kind of felt.
There was several like comic books that came out, and all these things that were very
Alien
very
good
comic
books. And
there's even a really good. This is probably going to laugh at this. There was a very good Batman versus Predator comic.
I saw it years ago. I didn't read the comic, but I saw
that the Predator comes to Gotham.
I'm sure it was fantastic. Right.
Yeah.
But you could see that fight, right? I mean, that's not
They're both
That's not
like
far-fetched in that
stealthy
world.
in the shadows.
They're both stealthy. Yeah, right. Weaponry. I mean, that's the thing, man. They pulling some old things in, like you said, some with Wayland and then they're pulling old some stuff in there in terms of obviously what we know about the aliens, what we know about the predators in terms of the way that they interact and the fight, and the things that they do well, and the counterbalance and act that they do in fighting each other. All that was there, but yet there was this new story that had some promise to it, and it's like, oh, this is interesting. This touches some anthropological stuff. Of course, you got the political stuff in there. You got the ecological stuff, and some of the global warming stuff had already kind of started, and so they're touching on some of that. I mean, yeah, it a promising concept.
I don't think it made a lot of money, though.
Did it say it made like 170 million or something worldwide, which isn't awful?
That was Freddy versus Jason.
That was Freddy versus Jason.
And this was Fox trying to copy what they did. It was a budget of 60 million estimated.
Uh-huh.
And worldwide it made 177 million. So, what do
How
I know?
about it? No. No. I've
80 million
read up on it the other day.
80 million in the US.
80 million.
Yeah.
I mean, not awful.
No, I mean it got a sequel.
They got a sequel out of it, and they made budget,
which is pretty good for a movie that they only spent like 2 or 3 months shooting. I think it was.
And 70 million.
Yeah.
60 million. And they made 177 million. I mean, that's a pretty good haul.
Yeah.
For a movie like this. I think that so I don't know if I've caught this yet, Preston, and I don't know if you're trying to wrap up, but like I don't know if I've caught this in your podcast to this point, and if I haven't, I apologize. In listening to them, they've all been really fun and enjoyable to listen to, and you guys go back and forth. I don't know if in these you guys, do you ever kind of come to a choke point where you're talking about whether or not it was a bad movie or if it was better than what it was deemed, or
final rating and would you watch it again, I guess.
I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I have watched it again. So I guess the answer to that question would be yes. I don't watch it every year on my birthday.
I don't either.
But
I watch a much better movie.
You don't. Just mess it. Yes, you do, for sure. And so I don't watch it every year. I mean, I used to see scenes from it. Of course, my favorite scenes that I like to watch are those action scenes. But I guess I did watch it again, and if I had to rate it again, it's really funny. My daughter kind of walked in toward the end. She was going to go to bed last night, and she's like, "What is this?" And I tell her, of course, I've explained the Predator to her like you did your nephew, and but of course she's almost 13, so I guess it's a little more palpable for her. But I was just telling her, and she's like, "Oh, so like the Predator fights aliens?" And I'm like, yeah, it's a long story. And so she was like, "When did you first see this movie?" And I said, "Oh, it's like 2004." And I said, "Believe it or not, it was when we lived in Charlotte the first time." And I my job before, I worked on the weekends, and so I would have on my particular team, I had to kind of finagle how I allowed my team to be off, because they all had weekend work. And I just decided that I'd allow a lot of them to be off on Friday, and I just decided to take Thursday off. So, and of course, my wife worked, and so a lot of times what I would do is just veg on that Thursday, and I would go to Blockbuster. I know I'm dating myself, and do the thing and rent 3 or 4 movies. And I rented this at Blockbuster and watched it on DVD in like a year or so after it came out. So I mean, how did I rate it then? I was trying to think about this today. I think that I tend to do revisionist history with this stuff because I like the Predator. I like the Aliens movies, and so it's nostalgic to me a little bit. I tend to look over flaws. I love great action movies, and when you put together 4, 5, 6, 7 scenes, I'm kind of low maintenance like that in these movies. Like if I'm going to watch Inception, I'm not expecting that. I want to see something smart and intuitive, and what have you. But when I know what it is, this is what I want to pull out of it. And so I think that glosses things over for me. And I think I rated it probably a little higher than maybe I would have rated it last night. But I still found myself, and I'll say this, and this is, I guess, could be the end of my commentary about that, is I find myself turning it off and going, man, I still like the Predator. I still love the Predator. I still love Aliens. I still think it's cool. I think the fight scenes are cool. I think like what they do and the way they've evolved these things is cool, even though there's some holes, in these stories.
So like from a scale of 1 to 10, or can you even put a number on it?
Man, I would say, given what I just said, I probably, the first time watching this movie, since this is called Second Take and we're reviewing something that was, seen as one thing way back, probably coming away from it the first time, I was like, oh man, yeah, that was a 7, and I hate to do this because I'm trying to come at this from the protagonist standpoint, like from the pro standpoint. It probably wouldn't be a 7. It would probably be like a 6 or a 5.
I was kind of that same way last.
Is that fair?
Monday night when I turned it off, because I didn't have a lot of expectations going into it. I remembered the movie, but it wasn't necessarily like terrible or bad to me.
Right.
And last night when I turned it off, I was like, oh, that's a 6, 5, 6.
Yeah, it's a 5, 6. Yeah, this is what I would say.
And then I did research and learned, they knocked out James Cameron's script, so like I'm down to a 3.
So now you're down to a 3.
We got this instead of a James Cameron Ridley Scott joint. So,
which we all know how you feel about that.
Yeah.
So I get it, man. That is an interesting little wrinkle for sure. If I had known that could have maybe swayed, but I will stick with what I say. It's just a little bit of a downgrade from before. But again, I find myself almost in teenage-like manner, just still loving. I wish. Here's the thing, Preston. You used to always say this when we would talk about movies a couple of years ago. Is no. It's good. I think that I remember you saying one time, like, if you come away from a movie thinking, "Boy, I like that," okay, but really, I wish someone else would have told the story. Then that, like what you're saying with James Cameron, and you wish that he would have told the story, or they would have used his film versus this film. Then that says a lot. It's like, hey, I have an interest in. There was a good shell, good try. But maybe somebody else tells the story. It's real. It's a 7 again, or an 8.
That's kind of a preview for last week's episode that came out today. I was trying to recast Chris Pratt because I thought he wasn't very well cast in this movie, in the Tomorrow War. But
really, okay, interesting. Yeah. Well, I started listening, and then I stopped it. I'll listen to it after I watch the movie.
I guess I should have put spoiler alerts in these things, but.
No, you're fine. I mean, again, it should be inherent. Somebody should see that you guys are reviewing it and that there's going to be spoilers. You're going to be talking about the movie. Yeah, I started hearing you guys getting into that a little bit, and then that's when I turned it off because I didn't want to get the spoilers.
All right, well, that is it for this episode.
Man, thanks for having me.
Thanks for doing this.
This is fun. Oh my gosh, this is a lot of fun, man. I figure we do it anyway. You might as well. When you asked me, I love what you're doing, and I think it's a cool concept, and just think it's cool.
Appreciate you doing it, man. That is it for this week. Next week, not sure yet. We'll see. So with that, I'll say go and follow us and leave a suggestion on Instagram and Twitter at Second Take Movies, or you can send us an email at secondtakemoviespod@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.